There's a heated debate brewing. Are the Dolphins building a competitive team or just accumulating potential without guarantees? Some decisions are already causing controversy, and the next choices could either silence the criticism or further fuel the uproar. But I'm going to explain everything to you, everything I'm hearing, everything that's happening, and the choices that could define the franchise's future. Before we proceed, don't forget to like the video right now, but only if you truly believe in this team and are rooting for the Dolphins, no matter what. And I want to see who the real optimists are in this fan base. Leave a comment right now and write, "Go Dolphins!" I believe in this team, because what comes next will test exactly how much faith you have in Miami. The Dolphins wrapped up day one addressing key areas with Caden Proctor reinforcing the offensive line and Chris Johnson stepping into a secondary that desperately needed help. According to internal evaluations and analysis, Proctor comes in as a powerful presence up front, a 3-year starter with a strong grading profile, while Johnson arrives after an elite coverage season that turned heads across the league. These aren't just depth additions, these are players expected to step in and contribute immediately. But here's where things get interesting. Day 2 brings 4 picks for Miami, 43, 75, 87, and 94. That's not just opportunity, that's leverage. And right now, the board is still loaded with talent that could completely reshape this roster. Looking at the best players still available, names like Jamal McCoy stand out immediately. A cornerback ranked extremely high before injury concerns caused his stock to drop. He represents one of those high-risk, high-reward prospects. If he never had that knee issue, we're probably talking about a top 5 talent. So the question becomes, do the Dolphins take that gamble? Then there's Emmanuel Warren, a safety prospect with size, production, and strong grading metrics. At 6 feet 2 inches and over 200 pounds, he fits the physical profile Miami has been missing in the back end. Add to that his Florida roots and consistent performance, and you start to see why he's gaining traction as a potential target at pick 43. And don't overlook the pass rushers. Cassius Howell is a name that keeps popping up, especially after posting 12 sacks in a single season. That kind of production doesn't go unnoticed. Sure, there are questions about his measurables and run defense, but when you can get after the quarterback like that, teams pay attention. T.J. Parker is another option, with a solid track record across multiple seasons. Now here's the bigger picture. The Dolphins still have clear needs: wide receiver, pass rusher, and safety. That's the trio fans keep talking about, and honestly, it makes sense. If Miami can walk away from day 2 having addressed all 3 positions with players who can contribute early, this draft could take a major leap forward. At wide receiver, the board is deep. Denzel Boston, Chris Bell, Skylar Bell, multiple options with different skill sets. Some bring size, others bring production, but the key is finding the right fit for this offense. Someone who can complement what's already in place and add another dimension to the passing game. And let's not forget, Miami has flexibility. With multiple mid-round picks and extra assets from trades, there's always the possibility of moving up or down. Could they package picks to jump higher in the second round? Could they trade back and accumulate even more assets? Everything is on the table right now. What makes this moment so intriguing is the uncertainty. There's talent everywhere on the board, but the direction the Dolphins choose will tell us everything about how they view this roster heading into 2026. Are they going aggressive? Are they playing it safe? Are they targeting upside or immediate impact? Because one thing is clear, they already have 2 projected starters from day 1. But that's not enough. This team needs more. It needs difference makers, not just contributors. And day 2 is where those players are found. And here's where the tension really starts to build around the Miami Dolphins front office decisions, because everything we've talked about so far leads into one unavoidable reality they cannot miss on these next picks. Day 2 is not just about adding depth, it's about defining the identity of this team heading into the 2026 season. If Miami stays at pick 43 and selects someone like Emmanuel Warren, you're immediately upgrading a secondary that, not long ago, was considered one of the weakest units in the league. Pairing him with Chris Johnson could quietly turn a liability into a strength. That's how fast things can change in the NFL when you hit on draft picks. But if they pass on a safety there, it tells us something else, that they believe the pass rush or offense is a bigger priority. Now imagine this scenario. The Dolphins go aggressive and take a pass rusher like Cassius Howell. Suddenly, you're adding a player who can bring double-digit sack potential into a defense that needs more pressure off the edge. That changes how opposing quarterbacks prepare. That changes how your secondary performs. Everything is connected. But there's also the wide receiver angle, and this might be the most intriguing one. With names like Denzel Boston and Chris Bell still on the board, Miami has a chance to add a dynamic weapon to the offense. And let's be honest, in today's NFL, you can never have too many weapons. If they double down here and grab a receiver early on day 2, it could signal a more aggressive, explosive offensive approach for 2026. And don't forget the depth of picks. Sitting with selections at 75, 87, and 94, the Dolphins have the flexibility to correct any move they make at 43. If they don't take a safety early, they can still target someone like A.J. Holley later. If they skip pass rusher, there are still developmental prospects who could be available in the 3rd round. This is where smart drafting separates good teams from great ones. There's also the wild card factor, trades. Miami has already shown they're willing to move around, picking up additional assets earlier. With multiple mid-round picks and no 6th rounder, don't be surprised if they try to package something to either move up for a specific target or trade back and accumulate even more value. This front office is not sitting still. And here's something fans need to keep in mind. The Dolphins are not just drafting for today. They're drafting for sustainability. Yes, they need starters, but they also need players who can develop, who can grow into bigger roles as the season progresses. That's why some of these names you're hearing might not be immediate stars, but they could become key pieces down the line. Right now, the foundation has started. Caden Proctor strengthens the trenches. Chris Johnson injects life into the secondary. But the structure isn't complete. It needs pass rush. It needs playmakers. It needs balance. And this is why day 2 feels so critical, because if Miami hits on even 2 of these next 4 picks, we're having a completely different conversation about this team heading into the season. We're not talking about potential anymore. We're talking about a roster that can compete. And the deeper you go into this draft, the more you start to realize that what the Miami Dolphins are building here isn't just about plugging holes. It's about setting a tone for the entire locker room moving forward. Because let's think about this for a second. If Miami comes out of day 2 with, let's say, a safety like Emmanuel Warren, a pass rusher like Cassius Howell, and then grabs a wide receiver such as Denzel Boston or Chris Bell, you're not just adding bodies. You're adding identity. You're telling the league, this team is getting faster, more physical, and more aggressive in every phase. And that matters. It matters because last season exposed gaps. Not just in talent, but in consistency. There were moments where the Dolphins looked like they could compete with anyone, and others where things simply fell apart. That's what separates contenders from pretenders: depth, execution, and the ability to respond when things don't go your way. That's why these picks at 75, 87, and 94 are just as important as 43. You could see Miami double down at key positions. Imagine they grab a pass rusher early, then come back in the 3rd round and take another one like Romulo Heights, who quietly put up 9 sacks. Now you've got competition, rotation, and fresh legs coming at quarterbacks all game long. Or maybe they go offense heavy. One receiver early, another later. Suddenly, your offense has layers. You're not relying on 1 or 2 guys, you're spreading the field, forcing defenses to make impossible choices. That's how modern NFL offenses dominate. And there's still that wild card element, the tight end.